I am going to try and create an almost identical terrain in both Gaea and World Machine, just to see which one is actually better. Or at least better for me. I am already comfortable using Gaea, and this whole video is just an excuse for me to try World Machine. I watched a few tutorials, and since they are both node-based workflows, I figured, what could go wrong? Looking at Gaea for the first time can be pretty overwhelming, but it is nowhere near as intimidating as looking at World Machine though, at least from my perspective. To clear up why I am using an older version of Gaea, that's because it still has the protrusion node. First up, I need a base for the actual terrain. In Gaea, creating a base island takes little to no effort, depending on your perfectionist level. For an island which I will create, you don't have to follow this exact node structure I am using. You can start with a mountain node or other methods. I just personally love this method because Gaea has a built-in island node that lets you physically paint the terrain shape. The rest of the nodes I use are really just to add details to that base and clamp the land down since the island node creates a long-ass terrain. Even though Gaea is purely procedural, I just click with it and feel completely at home. You can easily get a solid base terrain going in like 5 minutes. The only catch is that you are probably going to spend a lot more time just endlessly tweaking nodes to get exactly what you want, mostly the combine nodes since they do more work. Now, moving over to World Machine to get a base terrain. I was honestly surprised by how easy it was, and I instantly found something I really wish Gaea had. In World Machine, you can just make a custom shape exactly how you want it, which works well for islands and helps you not to rely purely on procedural generation. Once you have that shape, adding details is surprisingly straightforward. There is an advanced Perlin node that pretty much handles everything detail related right off the bat. I'll definitely need to explore more nodes later, but for now, it did the trick. I also dropped in a mountain-like node, just to break up the terrain so it wasn't completely flat. For someone who has spent way more time in Gaea than World Machine, I was really impressed by how logical and straightforward this workflow felt. Obviously, you can create incredibly complex stuff in both programs, but since I am just looking at this from a simple comparison perspective, I am going to keep the node graphs pretty clean. Next up is texturing. I absolutely love how Gaea handles this. They provide these incredible built-in textures called sat maps. You can extract colors from a custom image if you want to, but I usually just stick to the presets because they look great. My absolute favorite node here is the slope node. It is so cool because you can use it to isolate exactly where you want a specific material to go based on the angle of the terrain. As long as you know what a node does, it's effortless. You grab your terrain data for what you need, like where the rock goes and where the grass goes, using that slope node, mix the textures using the mask you just made, and boom, you have a beautifully colored terrain. You can also use the height node and so on for more details, which follows the same logic. The workflow is super easy to get into, and honestly, if it feels intimidating at first, just give it a little time. Once you understand how nodes connect, it becomes second nature. When it came time to texture in World Machine, I immediately saw a node called Quick Texture. Since I'm still learning this software, I thought, perfect, that will get the job done. I couldn't quite figure it out, so I ended up abandoning it completely. Instead, I found the Colorize node, and this thing is awesome. It works very similarly to the sat maps in Gaea, but it felt incredibly customizable. And luckily, World Machine also has my favorite node, Slope. I used it to mix my textures together using the Combine node magic and got some really solid results. Honestly, the more I used World Machine, the more I felt this sense of pure, customizable power. Because it doesn't force you to be strictly procedural, you get a lot of direct control. It's very straightforward, I just need to spend a little more time with it to build up my muscle memory. Finally, let's talk about exporting. Both programs make this completely painless. In Gaea, you just hit F3 on any node you want to export, choose your file formats in the build menu, and hit build. It makes exporting things like custom masks incredibly fast. There are some details I left out there, but this is an overview, not a full-on dive. In World Machine, there is a dedicated output area. You just connect your final results to your height map and color map nodes. You can go into these nodes to set the format and destination, and then write to disk, and you're done. I am still getting to know this software, but I honestly kind of love it. So what is the verdict? To make it simple, pick Gaea if you want fast results, prefer a heavily procedural workflow, and love a sleek modern UI. On the flip side, pick World Machine if you want more manual, direct control over your terrain shapes, and don't mind an older, slightly dated interface. What it lacks in looks, it makes up for with deep customization. I genuinely like both tools, and since they both have free versions, you can't go wrong. But here is my hard advice. If you are a beginner who wants quick, beautiful results with less friction, go with Gaea. If you are picky, detail-oriented, and want to hand sculpt your base shapes, go with World Machine. Honestly, I recommend trying World Machine first just to learn the fundamentals, because if you start with Gaea, its modern comforts might just spoil you. Alright, enough talking about nodes. Let's look at how both of these maps actually look once they are imported into a game engine. I won't be showing the import process, so enjoy, and make sure to stick around for the next video.